Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I'm Brian Zipsey, and as always, I'm joined by my Belmont Park partner, Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm great. I'm at Belmont Park in the press box awaiting the arrival of American Pharoah in a couple hours.
Belmont Park, what a better place to be. American Pharoah arrives for his date with Destiny on Saturday in a few hours there at Belmont Park. We're taping before he arrived. Matt, this is something we've all been waiting for, to see a horse attempt the Triple Crown we've seen, but we haven't actually seen a horse win a Triple Crown. Is this the year? What we're going to do today, Matt, is we're going to run down this field and help people decide if he's actually going to do it or if it's going to be number 14 to go down in flames, since Affirmed was able to seal the deal. Matt, why don't you start? And to no surprise, we're going to start our Belmont Stakes rundown 2015 with none other than American Pharoah. Why is he going to win, Matt?
Let's do it. Brian, I've been on the American Pharoah bandwagon since the beginning of the Derby Trail, and I'm not going to change that. The reports coming from Kentucky, I don't think I've ever heard reports as glowing as what we're hearing about American Pharoah and his preparation for the Belmont. He hasn't lost any weight. He hasn't lost anything. From the most respected people in the business, the comments about him are just stellar.
Yeah, so he's not losing anything going from Arkansas to Kentucky to Baltimore back to Kentucky, but he's working at Churchill Downs. Does that concern you at all? Belmont Park is a bit of a quirky, everything about it, the size, the track. Is that an issue that he's not working at Belmont Park? A lot of people want to make it an issue.
Yeah, they certainly do, and there's all kinds of historic stats, and I think it does concern me a little bit. But again, I think he can overcome that. I think he's that good. I think he's that adaptable. That I think it's not going to be a problem. And there still is a chance for the track to be wet here in New York. We've got rain in the forecast every day, and that's only going to help him even more.
Yeah, he's already shown to love a wet track. Now, if it's a sloppy track, and one where sloppy tracks often get a little bit speed favoring, I think that's right up American Pharoah's alley at 1.5 miles. But if it's any sort of wet where it's a little bit deeper and tiring, I don't know. Maybe it brings some other horses into play. For me, the 12 furlongs, Belmont Park is a little bit of a question mark. I think he's gotten things a little bit his way in his first 4 races this year. He's proven to be outstanding, that's for sure. We know he's doing well at Churchill Downs. How's he going to win it? We think maybe a wire job, Matt?
Well, I in my mind, I don't think there's any question that he's either going to be on the lead or right off the lead. I think it's going to depend on what some of those Pletcher horses do. I think it's going to depend on what Made from Lucky does and what Materiality does. But he's going to be either on the lead or right there with him.
Yeah, I think too, and I think a danger for him is if one or two of those Pletcher horses goes a little faster. If they want to throw down a 110 and change or so, that becomes as good as American Pharoah is. That makes him work a little harder early, and that's when he can get leg weary for that last long quarter mile of the Belmont Stakes. I agree, though. He can control the race either on the lead or sitting second early. He's the horse to beat, Matt. You say it. I'm going to say it too. He's the most likely winner. I might not like him quite as much as some others. I think he's beatable, but I still say he's the most likely horse to win the Belmont Stakes.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Who's the most likely horse to beat him if he does indeed get beaten? Let's start with, how about we start with Kieran McLaughlin's horse, who I think will be the second choice. Frosted is the Wood Memorial winner. He's been working at Belmont Park with a very talented older horse. Is Frosted a real candidate to be the horse that stops American Pharoah?
I think so. Brian, you and I both liked him going into the Derby, and he ran a heck of a race there. He's been training here at Belmont. I think he's only going to get better. And like you said, if we get a few of them out on the lead early, then I think that the race could set up for Frosted.
Yeah, Frosted, I think people are thinking that Frosted might be a real closer as he rallied in the Wood to win the Wood, and then he was way back in the Derby. To me, I've seen a lot of races from Frosted where he was a little bit closer to the pace, And I think he does that in the Belmont. I think he's mid-pack early. And you're right. If that pace is a little bit taxing, a little bit pressing for American Pharoah, a mid-pack Frosted, if he runs his best race, I think is a big threat. Kieran McLaughlin has done well in mile and a quarter, mile and a half races before. He won the Belmont with Jazzle. I think Frosted is more talented than Jazzle was. Frosted, I consider Frosted a real threat. And what we said about American Pharoah as far as the pace makes Frosted even more dangerous. If the pace is just a little faster than American Pharoah wants, Frosted might be the one. We also think that another one from the Pletcher barn, who rallied well in the Derby, might be a big threat, Matt.
Yeah, Materiality has been up here training for the Belmont. I don't think I think we're going to see Materiality or closer to the lead, and I think he's got as good a shot as any to upset American Pharoah.
Yeah, Materiality, of course, we have to see him closer to the lead than the Derby because he just didn't get out of the gate. He's always been close to the lead before. He's not a dead speed horse for sure, a dead set speed horse. But the Derby was an anomaly in that he just broke bad and was way farther back. He still turned out to run a good race. Now, is it up to Materiality to pressure American Pharoah? Carpe Diem isn't in the race. He was a horse that maybe could have pressured American Pharoah. Is Materiality, who a lot of people have as the most likely upsetter, the one that has to go with American Pharoah early?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it could be his stablemate Made from Lucky that is giving some pressure to American Pharoah on the lead. Made from Lucky ran a great race up by the pace in the Peter Pan and is most likely to run another good race on his home track.
Well, that was the next horse we were going to talk about, Matt. Let's jump into Made from Lucky. Yeah, a good Peter Pan. However, he did have a couple cracks at American Pharoah down in Arkansas, and it didn't look like he was quite in the same league as our Derby and Preakness winner. The Peter Pan, the training, it seems like Pletcher thinks he's stepped his game up since Arkansas. What do you think?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, Brian, I think Made from Lucky is the Pletcher horse that's training the best. I've changed my tune a little bit, and I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb, and I think that I like Made from Lucky better than Materiality to be an upsetter or get in the exacta or trifecta in the Belmont.
I'm not going to go with you there, Matt. As far as training, I haven't seen them in person, but Made from Lucky won the one-turn Peter Pan. Now, the Peter Pan has been a nice race in that it has produced Belmont horses that have won or run well, and I think the race over the track is an advantage. But the fact that he ran a one-turn race against horses that probably aren't as good as Frosted or Materiality make me worried. What's interesting to me about Made from Lucky, as much as anything, is he going to be the horse? Materiality, Made from Lucky, those are the two most likely candidates now to make American Pharoah work early. So I think maybe the advantage falls to the other one. If Made from Lucky does some dirty work, or if Materiality does some dirty work, it might be advantageous to the other. Of the two, I think Materiality is a classier horse. I'm not sold on Made from Lucky yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating strategy for Velasquez and Castellano, the two Pletcher riders, and see what they do in the Belmont.
Remind our audience who's on who in the Belmont, Matt?
Johnny V is on Materiality, and Javi is on Made from Lucky.
Which is different than the Derby when Johnny V rode Carpe Diem.
Yes.
And Materiality got off to the bad start with Castellano. So be that as it may, one of them or both of them are going to be the horses that probably make American Pharoah work. It'll be interesting. Those two riders know Belmont as well as anyone. Advantage to those horses as far as knowing the Belmont track and the huge backstretch. All right, we're going to jump down to a horse from Dubai, Matt. Mutiny. Mutiny was a little disappointing in the Derby. The 3/16 pole, he was in the picture, but then he didn't do a whole lot of running down the Churchill down stretch.
Yeah, Brian, I had the chance this morning to watch Mutiny on the sloppy track at Belmont Park for his morning exercise, and I actually got to do that right next to trainer Michael DeCock, who is in the States now. And after the work, he said that this is a whole different ball game for the horse. The short amount of prep time before the Kentucky Derby was not really good for Mutiny. Too many changes. And the 5 weeks in Belmont, according to DeCock, has really been fantastic for his horse. in the modest kind of way of the Brits, he is looking for his horse to show a lot of improvement here. He was very coy and said he doesn't know if anybody can beat American Pharoah, but he's looking for his horse to show a lot more on Saturday.
So you were the guy I heard in the video yelling "Mooby" this morning next to the South African huh? "Mooby, Mooby." Yeah, it makes sense. Call it an excuse, if you will, that he didn't run his best race in the Derby because he didn't have time to acclimate completely and train as well as the cock wanted. But those are viable things. He didn't run a bad race. He came up a little short in the stretch. Mile and a half. You know, I think he's as likely as anybody, especially the way those horses are trained to get the mile and a half. He's an interesting candidate. He's going to have to improve on his Kentucky Derby, but a lot of horses do that. They don't run their best in that 20-horse field in the Derby, then they come to Belmont and run much better. He's certainly a viable candidate. It seems like a lot of people are talking about him, though. It's the live long shot. Maybe he's vying for third choice or something, which doesn't make him quite as attractive to me. But he's a reasonable horse if you think he can turn it around like his trainer, Mike DeCock, does. After him, let's go to a stone cold closer because there's not much else left than stone cold closers. Maybe the top stone cold closer, and those stone cold closers haven't done particularly well in the Belmont over the years, is Keen Ice, the Donegal runner from Jerry Crawford's program, trained by Dale Romans. And once again, Matt, I remember this so clearly last year. Dale Romans couldn't talk up medal count enough. Now he's doing the same with Keen Ice, saying all the right things. His horse is just blossoming and doing so well. He can't even believe how well he's doing. He did, after getting through some traffic, through some trouble in the Derby, make up a lot of ground in the stretch. Can he do that in the Belmont, or is he a horse that's going to be running at the end that gets second, third, or maybe even makes a run for the win?
I'm skeptical, and again, Dale Romans loves to talk up his horses. He does it all the time going into a big race. I mean, you know, he made a decent move in the Derby, but I don't like him much in here, Brian.
Fair enough, Matt. I think he's one of the more likely horses to get 12 furlongs. But the problem with these closers that really don't have any speed and expect to make a big move is after you've run 8, 9, 10 furlongs, it's harder to have that same kick that you've seen at shorter distances.
Yep.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Victory Gallop, Birdstone, you know, Jazzle, sometimes they just keep coming. Or sometimes the other horses are slowing down more and more where their rally looks more effective. Of the three closers, he's definitely my favorite. More likely for me that he gets into the bottom of the exotics than the win. At his best, though, I could see him rallying for, especially if no one else runs their best race, rallying for second. All right, so who else are the closers? We've got the Preakness runner-up, a horse who rallied to get second in the Preakness. We're not giving much respect to Tale of Verve from Mr. Dallas Stewart's barn. Should we be giving the Preakness runner-up more respect?
You know what, Brian? I like Tale of the Verve, believe it or not, a lot more going into the Preakness than into the Belmont. I have a lot of respect for Dallas Stewart and what he's done with some of these horses, but they haven't fared well in the Belmont. Commanding Curve and Golden Soul, who both made that great move earlier in the Triple Crown, they both finished 9th in the Belmont. I don't see Taylor the Verve having as much success on Saturday.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Matt. Taylor Verve, he ran his race. The one thing you could say about Taylor Verve, he's a good-looking horse. He's on the improve, but for him to jump up that much in the Preakness, and let's face it, he never threatened the winner. He never got close to American Pharoah. But he made a big jump up to get second in the Preakness, to run by Divining Rod, who I thought was the second best horse in the Preakness after the race. He rallied by him. At the Belmont, a mile and a half, I just don't think that's likely at all. Yeah, Tel Verve will not be on my tickets. What about Frumento? He's the last one, maybe the longest shot on the board. Matt, he hasn't shown quite the class or quite the brilliance or the talent yet to do too much, but he's trained by a gentleman named Nick Zito. And Nick Zito, I might be wrong on this total, but I want to say Nick Zito's been first or second in the Belmont Stakes 9 times. Should we look at Fermento because of Nick Zito?
Well, Nick Zito is Mr. New York, and he has spoiled a couple of Triple Crown bids amongst those great finishes that you mentioned, Brian. But he's going to have to make a tremendous improvement. He was so far behind in the Derby. I know it was the Derby, but he didn't even really make a very impressive rally to me. I don't think this is a Nick Zito horse that is going to be a spoiler, nor is he going to finish in the top three.
Yeah, Keen Ice looked better in the Derby. I think he looked a little bit better going into the Derby, but you watch the Derby and Keen Ice looked better. Now, Dale Romans is a Churchill guy. Nick Zito is a Belmont guy. That does carry over to the training, their preference for the tracks. So, even though Keen Ice was clearly better than Fermento, they finished 7th and 10th or 11th, whatever it was. Keen Ice was clearly better. I think the track alone and the hometown advantage that he gains versus Keen Ice losing is something to think about. So if you're looking for a horse who just is going to like this track and is just passing a lot of tired horses for a trainer who's done it so many times before, I think Fermento at 40-1, 50-1 is a horse that you might want to look into, just like some people included Tale of Verve in the Preakness. Fermento might be that crazy long shot that gets into the exotics, partly because of Nick Zito. And the horse made up some ground in the Derby. Matt, that's 8. We did all 8. American Pharoah, sounds like, he's the one to beat. Frosted Materiality, maybe Made from Lucky, you're a little bit more on. We still think Mutiny is an interesting horse. Keen Ice, maybe. Fermento, maybe for the exotics. I like him a little better than you do for the exotics. That's it. Any parting words for our Belmont Stakes preview?
I'll tell you what, besides an exciting Belmont Stakes with a Triple Crown on the line, it is a phenomenal day of racing on Belmont Stakes day. 5 other grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, a grade 3. What a phenomenal racing card. One that you don't see very often beyond the Breeders' Cup. How about you, Brian?
When I get to New York, it's going to be like a kid in a candy store. Matt, I love all these stakes races. I love seeing good horses compete. Great card, wonderful card. I can't wait. The Met is awesome. The Manhattan, the Acorn, you just go down the list. Untappable, and the Ogden Phipps. Beautiful racing. For me, though, the number one thing I think, and most of the people watching this show, Matt, is will he do it? Will American Pharoah win the Triple Crown? I'm a little skeptical. I think he can be beaten, but I want to see him do it. First time in 37 years. Go American Pharoah.
Yeah, and Brian, you know me. I've always been very skeptical about horse winning the Triple Crown. But you know what, Brian? This is the year. American Pharoah will do it.
This is the year. Good enough, Matt. Good way to end the show. I thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, and I'll see you Friday.
From Belmont Park on location. Go say hello to American Pharoah as he gets off the van this afternoon. And I thank you, the fans, the consistent watchers of HorseCenter. We love doing the show for you. I hope you enjoyed this, our Belmont Stakes preview. Go American Pharoah. Brought to you by Horse Racing Nation and Derby Wars. See you at the Belmont.